surprise. The only one who could ever reach me was the son of a preacher man. The only boy who could ever teach me was the son of a preacher man. Yes, he was. He was. Yes, he was.
Well, that's our season. So the first season of Preacher, brought to us by Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg. Was it worth the wait? Was it what we've been asking for? We'll get on that in just a second. So, episode 9 and 10. Episode 9 was titled Finish the Song. What did you think about this one?
I liked it, except for the little Groundhog Day part that we saw in it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, the Saint of All Killers comes back for another little prologue section in this show, and it shows him finally returning to Ratwater to get his revenge. He pretty much fucks everybody up, and even slices the dude's head off. I know you were all excited because you were like, slice his head off.
Yeah, and then I saw his sword from across the way, and you were just like, no, he's not, and then bam, his fucking head gets sliced off. So I was like, yeah!
Yeah, so that was a pretty cool scene. He's a pretty cool character, even though I think they've done a really shitty job at kind of connecting him to the main story. But
I felt like that part just had too much of him in it. The episode felt like, I know there was a lot of other story, but it felt like there was a lot of it geared, maybe like a third of the movie was just geared towards him, and I didn't really care for it. Because still, as a show person, I'm not able to...
As a non-comic reader?
Yeah, I don't I don't have that connection to him that you do from the comics.
Well,
in the comics, he must be a big badass guy that
he is, and that's what I was saying too about him not really having any connective tissue to the main story. But as far as all the stuff that happened back in the town of Annville, so Jesse confesses to Sheriff Root that he sent Eugene to hell, but the sheriff just kind of takes it figuratively. He doesn't really take him seriously.
Who believes them?
Exactly.
I sent him to hell. No,
yeah.
No,
DeBlanc and Fior our angels go to a travel agent, and they ask to be taken far south. So anybody can pretty much put two and two together with that. They're trying to get to hell somehow for some reason, which we don't quite know yet.
It was really funny too the way it was set up, because they go into like
just a random travel agent.
Well, I don't think it's random. They know who she is, obviously.
I know, but it looks random from what we're seeing. And then
they're kind of like further south.
Yeah.
Further south.
So Tulip is still trying to heal Cassidy, and she ends up just pretty much telling Emily everything and enlisting her with the task of finishing it up while she goes to Albuquerque to find Carlos.
Yeah, well, it's funny because Emily walks in the house and there's all these animals, and she's like, what the hell? And that's when Tulip finally tells her, well, he's a vampire and he has to have blood to heal. So it was kind of funny, and seeing, Tulip is kind of I don't give a fuck, I'll do whatever it takes to get the job done, and Emily is the organist at a church, so you don't really expect her to do this. But well,
she had a really, really weird sudden change of character in this. So she's had this weird off and on kind of creepy relationship with the Mayor Miles. And he pretty much does everything for her and takes care of her kids. And obviously
it seems like he pursues her a lot.
Obviously they're sleeping with each other, but she doesn't really give him the time of day, but he still kind of comes around. So she calls him to this house like she needs help, and you're thinking she's just going to tell him about Cassidy and not know what to do. And she ends up just locking his ass in the room and feeding him to fucking Cassidy. So it was kind of like wait a minute, what? Why is that?
It was a little dark for her.
So that was a little bit odd, but I thought Cassidy looked pretty cool when he was kind of in his burnt-up feral state.
Ew, he looked really scary.
Well, so good classic vampire stuff there. And something that I appreciated a lot, there's a couple little Breaking Bad Easter eggs in these two episodes. The bus stop where DeBlanc and Fior are waiting to go to the far south. It's right out of the final season of Breaking Bad, which is where the Robert Forster's character picks up whoever he's going to erase their identity. So anybody that's a big Breaking Bad fan saw that little bus stop and they were like, wait a minute. So that was cool to me. And there was another little little poke at the audience, I thought too, whenever they are finally picked up. The bus driver tells, hey, you can't have any carry-ons, and they have this huge crate, and Fior is like, but I don't want to leave my comics behind. And DeBlank's like, oh, it's okay, just leave them. To me, that was like a little wink, like, yeah, we know we ain't following the comics, just deal with it.
Yeah.
So, Jesse finally visits Cassidy after his little inferno, and sees that he's devoured all these animals, sees that he's killed the mayor, and, you know, they start talking to each other, and you don't quite pick up right away if maybe, because he tells him, you need to get out of here, it's not safe, and you don't know if it's not safe because he hates him now, or if it's not safe because he's kind of feral, but they reveal that Jesse did actually extinguish Cassidy. He didn't let him burn.
Yeah, which is kind of a hard thing to see because in the episode before this one, Jesse has the little thing with Eugene where you're not quite sure if it's really him, and it turns out just being all in Jesse's head. So
I think that was 2 episodes ago, wasn't it?
I don't remember.
Anyway.
But I kind of felt the same way, that maybe it's not really Cassidy, but it turns out it was. So that was kind of cool. Like, you know how Eugene came back in the church and it was all in Jesse's head? I was thinking maybe the thing with Cassidy, like his guilt.
I was just staring at her like, what the fuck are you talking about? That was woman? Obviously Cassidy. But, all right, so so he reveals that Jesse saved Cassidy, which is cool.
Yep.
And they kind of start talking about the way that he's going to bring God to the church, and he kind of tells Cassidy he needs angel hands to power this heaven phone. And Cassidy's like,
guess who knows where angel hands are?
Yeah,
Cassidy.
He's like, damn, I wish you would have told me that shit before I buried him freaking 6 feet under.
Right. So now they've got to dig them up, and it's kind of cool too. While they're digging them up, they go ahead and bury Miles
and the animal corpses.
Yeah, the corpses from the animals, which I don't know why they buried the animal corpses, but whatever.
Just so there's no questions. But so he gets them to his angel hands, and we finally get a moment between Jesse and Tulip that starts to echo the way they are in the comics. You know, it's kind of random, but he calls her up and he's talking about like, hey, I had pancakes today, which I guess has some relevance to them. And he gives her at the end that you know, that famous quote from the comics every time that they kind of just express their love. He goes, yeah, it's you till the end of the world. It was a little bit out of nowhere, and I feel like their relationship's kind of not earned yet because they've went so hard showing how Jesse just does not give a fuck about her at all this entire season, and then I don't really know what is his tipping point that all of a sudden now he's interested in her again. So
he's got a lot of built up anger for some reason towards her.
Yeah. So he calls her, and she doesn't answer the phone because she's about to really fuck Carlos up. She's got like a meat pounder and everything in her hand. So we don't
tied
really
up to a chair.
Yeah, we don't get to see the end of that yet. And then we end up going right back to the Saint of Killers storyline from the beginning of the show. And this is where you started. You were like, oh my God.
Fucking Groundhog Day all over again. I hate it so much.
Anything about like repeated timelines like Groundhog Day.
Seeing it once or twice isn't bad. But watching it over and over and over and over, I fucking hate it. I really do.
Sometimes, the Groundhog Day I love, but it's hilarious to me how irritated you get.
It happens in so many shows.
Even in Supernatural.
I hated it.
I was like, this is such a great episode. It's my favorite one. And then you saw, like, as soon as you heard the radio turn on the second time, you were like, oh God, no.
Yeah, that's how I felt this time, too. I was just like, damn, it's something we've already seen. I'm not sure the relevance of it at that point. And I'm just like, oh my God, it's so aggravating. It just continuously shows
it was jarring for me too, because I was like, are they just recapping everything that we saw at the beginning of this episode? And
that's what you said it was. It started all the way over.
Yeah, and it played it all in real time.
But then it happened again.
And then it happens again, and it happens a few seconds are cut out of it, so it's a little bit shorter
each time. Yeah, but it's still there.
And then it's like 15 seconds shorter, and you have to watch it again. And it was really weird to me. It was almost like they knew they didn't have enough shit to fill the episode out, so they had to kind of squeeze as much screen time out of that. But it was
so aggravating. I don't care for it. I didn't like it.
It was odd. It was oddly handled, but I did like how when you finally see Fiora and DeBlank show up, you're like, oh, is this hell? And then you get those big letters, Dom Hell, and you're like, oh, okay, that makes sense. Now they haven't showed how the hell the Saint of Killers was ever killed. It showed his storyline. And, going back to Ratwater and everything. And then, obviously he died somehow.
Maybe he did it to himself, as crazy as it sounds, because his family died and he just had nothing else to live for. As messed up as that is, I wouldn't be surprised if that was the way it happened.
Not if you know the character from the comics. That's not something he would do at all. He's just ruthless, and he's just like unstoppable killing machine. Yeah. So I don't think that he doesn't have that part to his character, at least in the comics. Well, they could do whatever they want with the show, but
you're correct, they can.
So
and so far they have.
Yeah. So Fiora and DeBlanc show up and they recruit him, basically to start hunting down Jesse, which everybody who is a comic reader has been waiting for that to come. Which
I'm still confused how that's going to happen, because if they killed Jesse while Genesis is in him, I don't know if it escapes, but maybe because when they got it out of him last time when Jesse allowed them to take Genesis, and it escaped right back into him again.
I'm guessing Genesis either gets destroyed with him, or the more likely, if he's dead, they can trap him, and he's not going to try to shoot back into anybody else.
That's what I'm thinking.
But yeah, so anyway, they try to recruit the Saint of all killers, and he immediately just blows DeBlanc's head off. Mm-hmm. So, he's got these pistols that you're pretty much, by the end of the finale especially, which we're going to get into in a second, you're pretty much led to believe that these bullets are kind of like the cult from Supernatural. They kill everything. Yeah. So it seems like DeBlanc is dead for real. Mm-hmm. He's not coming back. So a little bit of a kind of a mixed bag to end with, but
it was an okay episode.
Yeah, it was okay. Now we get to the finale. Ooh. So this is what we've been waiting for.
Forever.
For 10 weeks.
And this is long as the show has dragged
This is
on.
something, yeah. And, I've had moments where I like this show a lot, but for the most part, I've been just kind of quietly waiting for it to grab me and quietly waiting for it to deliver what I've been waiting on. And I was thinking, okay, they have to do it in this finale, otherwise I'm going to have some serious doubts about coming back next year.
Yeah, agreed, completely.
And they completely dropped the ball.
They failed.
They completely dropped the fucking ball. This finale, in one word, just anticlimactic. I mean, everything that they've built up to, they just totally squander it.
I literally fell asleep during the finale.
Yeah.
Like, how often does that happen where you're so bored you fall asleep during the freaking finale?
I found myself checking my phone a lot, just like needing something else to kind of get my attention.
Yeah, but, I had to grit my teeth and fucking bear through this shit.
Yeah, it was really disappointing, guys. So just to kind of recap some of the things that happened. So basically, the episode starts out, the whole town is in preparation for God's arrival. Because, Jesse's promised everybody he's going to make God show himself in Sunday's service. There's like 50% off bikini waxes and all these weird things.
Which is strange. I don't know why you would wax your bikini for Jesus. It's not like God's coming to look at your vaginas, ladies.
I don't know, but that's just part of the humor, I guess. But everybody pretty much in town is trying to do something to prepare themselves. And, Tulip comes back to town. She gets word that Donnie and Betsy, the little dominatrix couple, is keeping Jesse. Yeah. So she busts into their house and smashes Betsy's nose and everything. And then Jesse just walks out. And
he's coming out of the shower and he's like, hey, Tulip.
Yeah, he's a welcome guest. And all of a sudden, him and Donnie are like friends, which made no sense to me since Donnie's absolutely hated him the entire show.
Exactly.
And it didn't give me any kind of a scene or any kind of inkling throughout the series why he would do that. They try to explain it like, well, he just forgave Jesse in the church when he was about to kill him, and because he took mercy on him in that bathroom, and it was stupid.
More filler.
Yeah. So then we get the flashback that finally shows what happened with Carlos.
Exactly.
And from the very first little snippet that we got, you could have figured all that out on your own. So yeah. I mean, all it showed. Okay, they were robbing a bank. Mm-hmm. They were robbing a bank. And Carlos betrayed them and left with all the money. And you could have gathered that from the first little 15-second tease that they gave you back in like episode 3 or 4. It
gives you more insight, though. You kind of see Jesse and Tulip and how their relationship is. They're in the bank, and for some reason Carlos is just walking around not really doing much. You're not quite sure what his character's doing other than maybe watching the hostages.
Yeah,
maybe.
Well, one thing, that's pretty much what he was doing. One thing that I did like about that scene was that it shows Jesse and Tulip straight from the comics pretty much. Jesse has the same hair as Jesse from the comics, where it's a little bit longer.
Yeah, it's definitely
They're
old
joking
school.
around, and they're they find this double-fisted dildo
in a safety deposit box.
In a safety deposit box, and he's like, "Come on, it'll be like Lady and the Tramp with our butts." And
anytime you're ready for some sexy time, you got to go to the bank.
Yeah, and to me, it wasn't absolutely laugh out loud hilarious, but it was straight out of the comics because
I found some humor.
That really weird sexual humor is peppered throughout those books all over the place. But that was I did like in that scene that it did show more of the characters that I know.
Yeah, and you also see that Carlos is jealous of their relationship, and that's why
he leaves.
Fucks him over.
Yeah, exactly. And it causes Jesse to have to kill a guard, and then Tulip just suddenly miscarries, which was a little bit odd. I don't know. I'm not a gynecologist or anything, but I don't know if just sudden stress just makes you miscarry like that.
Trauma. Well, it also depends on how she didn't look like she was far along at all.
Yeah, it did give, to me, the miscarriage thing did give a little bit of explanation on why Tulip has been just waiting around all season for Jesse. Like, she couldn't finish it without him.
It's part of he deserves to be there when it happens too. I mean, it's kind of it's messed up. I'm not by any means am I saying go on a killing spree together, but it's why she was doing it. It made sense after you see that part. Yeah. Now, getting to the actual revenge part, it was an absolute waste of time. And
I agree. It built up all season, like you were finally going to see them just beat some ass and get back at Carlos. And, Tulip's sitting there basically trying to persuade Jesse to kill him. And Jesse's resisting. And then finally he gives in and gets ready to kill him. And Tulip's like, oh, no, never mind. We don't need to do that. It's just the thought that counts. And you're like, wait a minute, what?
Yeah.
We're just going to let him go? And then he gets ready to let him go. And then they're like, oh, no, never mind. And they get ready to beat the shit out of him. And you're like, oh, okay, cool. And then they beat the fuck out of him off screen. You don't get to see any of it.
And then you see him like walking around in the alleys and
he's all beaten to shit. And,
he looks like a zombie. Cody said he looks like he's from The Walking Dead,
which
he does.
I think it was. I think it was a little wink because it is AMC. It's the same TV network, so I think that was more of a like, hey guys, remember that other show that we got? It's coming back in October.
Yeah, exactly.
So
it was kind of cool, but
so that really pissed me off that they made such a huge fucking deal. Especially that was all they gave Tulip to do all season was wait to get back at Carlos for 10 episodes, and we didn't get to see anything.
She brings him all the way to Jesse in the trunk of her car, and, she's like, please kill him, please kill him, please kill him. And, he finally says, okay, fuck it, I'm going to do it. And then she stops him, and it's like, oh my God, I've been waiting for this the whole season. Yeah. This episode was really a downfall. Yeah.
Well, that's not the first. That's not going to be the last time that they kind of tease us with something we don't get a
for a finale,
resolution.
Come on.
No. I'm saying in this episode we have something else we're about to talk about that does the same thing. So not only that, and then they have a pretty decent scene between Cassidy and Root. Root comes to the conclusion that Cassidy's a vampire. He has like this little manila envelope with all his past crimes, and he realizes that the shit's over like 60, 70 years.
Yeah, he's reading them, and he's like, well, this happened in 1800s or whatever it was.
He pretty much interrogates him about what happened to his son Eugene. So he just shoots him continuously and lets him heal and keeps asking him where Eugene is, and eventually Cassidy gets out of it, but that was kind of a decent little scene between them.
I mean, Sheriff Root just lets him go.
Well, he just pisses him off because he tells him, like, I bet part of you likes the fact that Eugene's not around anymore. And
but still, for him to just let him go was kind of a...
Well, it went nowhere, but I'm just saying it was decent. And then so then we get to the big scene that I've been waiting for all season. I've said pretty much in every review we've done, okay, I think they're going to build up to that explosion where everybody dies in the first issue of the comic. I think that's going to be our finale. And so the church is pretty much slam-packed. Everybody in town is there. They're all shoulder to shoulder. And Jesse gets ready to summon God with this little heaven phone.
He can't figure out how to work it.
Yeah, so he finally gets it to work, and it was like a scene like out of Bill and Ted to me. Like this white-haired dude just kind of comes up and he's like, "Hey, I'm God.
Yeah,
I'm the Alpha and the Omega."
It kind of reminded me of Wizard of Oz.
Something like that. It was very kind of campy the way that they did it, and so then everybody's freaking out like, "Oh my God, he made God appear," and Jesse pretty much can tell after a while, hey, you're not God, and he confronts him on it.
They give the people time to ask him questions or whatever, but this God, I'm using air quotes here, is very vague with his answers, and you're not sure why. It doesn't really look like what I would picture God looking like. But
well, it's the stereotypical God. That's why, but which makes sense because it turns out that it's just an angel imposter. He's just dressed up as God. So after Jesse confronts him and uses his power to get him to spill the beans, the angel tells him that God's missing from heaven. Nobody knows where he's at.
Dun, dun, dun.
Which is kind of what sets off the comics as well.
Which is what's going to happen in season 2 if we get a season 2 from this.
We are. They've already renewed it for a 12-episode season. And
it doesn't drag on like this one.
Yeah, I know. So then, after he realizes that God's not there, not in heaven, Jesse collects Tulip and Cass, and they leave the church to go to a diner.
A diner outside of town. Like, the only place they can get food is, like, miles away from the town. Yeah.
And then it shows this little montage with all the Anvil citizens of pretty much, like, everybody's lost hope after this little...
After God's missing,
it shows
their world.
It shows the mascots hanging themselves, and the schoolgirls murder that pedophile from like episode 3. And
I wish they would have showed us more about that.
Yeah, Tracy Loach gets smothered by her mother,
which is strange. Why would that even freaking happen?
I don't know.
It's the first time you see her too without her wig on, where you see her head's blown off.
Yeah, and then it shows the son taking a selfie while she's doing it, which I guess was supposed to be funny, but it was so disturbing. It wasn't like funny to me, and then. Quinn Cannon's holding like a little ground beef baby.
Oh, yeah, it's weird. Well, because when they're all talking to God, and he's like, "Why'd you let my daughter die?" or whatever.
Well, he's all the the god of meat. And
yeah, exactly.
All that kind of stuff,
so it was really strange about this meat baby. His character is just a really oddball. Really weird.
But so then it goes and it shows again this little. It looks like a control panel that we've seen a couple times, where they finally show what it is, and
we've never been sure what it was before.
It's like some kind of a methane plant that's planted underneath the town.
Well, and it's because it's Quinn Cannon stuff.
Yeah, all the manure and everything. And for whatever reason, he's got vents that go all around town that let all this methane gas out with no kind of regulation, and so then it starts reaching danger levels and spewing the gas into the town, and it sparks and everything explodes. Off screen.
Yeah, well, it's also kind of strange this part of the show because you've got the guy who's normally manning it, and for some reason he's like passed out, and then you've got some dominatrix lady with a ball gag. I think that was
another form of him, like another Annabelle citizen losing hope because he was talking to his wife trying to do something romantic earlier in episodes. So then now that the god's not there, he's fucking a dominatrix. But
maybe that was his wife. Who knows?
I don't know. But anyway,
trying to spice things up.
So then that moment finally comes where the town's going to explode, and we don't get to see any of it. We see the church blow over, and then it's almost like that movie Godzilla. They show it on the screen in the background on like a little newscast, like, "Oh, Anvil's been destroyed. There's no survivors."
Yeah. So Jesse and them aren't paying attention, or they're leaving the diner at that time, so they don't even really understand.
Because we got, this is what's weird. And what I didn't like, we're forced to spend an entire season with these people. Like, their relationships with Jesse and Cass and Tulip are so important that we need to get to know them before this big event happens. And then we don't get to see
them die.
The climax of it. We don't get to see, not that we need to see everybody explode in like some big bloody glory or anything.
I would have liked that.
Well, they did it in the pilot. They did it when the whole church exploded and everybody... Or the dude exploded all over everybody.
Africa, yeah.
Yeah, so I mean, they have the budget to do it if they wanted to, but it was weird. Now you don't even really comprehend if everybody's dead or not. You don't know if supposedly Quinn Cannon and Emily and Donnie and all these people are dead, but you don't get to see any of them. You don't get to see any of it could have even showed a scene of them wherever they're at while everything explodes. It didn't have to didn't have to show them dying, but it could have showed that they were in the explosion. Yeah. And it's just weird.
The only thing it shows is we only see one survivor from it.
Well, it's the Seraphim Angel. Yeah. And, but it was really fucking pissing me off that we had to spend 10 episodes of people that we're not supposed to, we're not going to care about past this season because they're on the road now and they're never coming back to Anvil. And we didn't even get to see anybody's story wrap up. They just kind of fizzle out.
Maybe they'll do something strange, because we've gotten to know their personality and everything. Maybe it'll be something where it's like they're in Jesse's subconscious now. So
that would be stupid.
I hope they agree, don't do that.
But I'm sure
with
Odin.
This show, I don't put it past them. I can see it happening.
I'm sure Odin Quinn Cannon's probably still alive. Because he's a big villain from later on in the comics.
God saved him.
Yeah, exactly. He hid underneath some ground beef. But, they gave so much story to Emily. So it would, and Sheriff Root, which we haven't really gotten any resolve with him. So it's one of two things, which they both suck. It's either we've wasted all this season building up this story that we never got any resolve with any of those characters, and they're all dead now. Or they're all still alive, and this whole big, climactic explosion was a complete waste, and it never went anywhere because now everybody that was halfway important in the season just survives it somehow.
Yeah,
so
they're still somehow there.
Yeah, so
even if they're in
I
ICU.
I was really pissed off with the way that they did that.
I completely agree. It was not a great.
And I thought it was a little bit convenient, like you already said. Jesse and Cass and Tulip, I guess the only fucking diner around is way on the outskirts of town where they're not even close to an explosion.
Yeah, exactly.
Like nobody in Annville has French fries apparently. And
yeah, because that's all Tulip wanted after they saw God. I want French fries after this. So.
Exactly. So anyway, so the comic or the episode ends where the comic begins, kind of. Jess and Cass and Tulip are in the same diner as the comic, and they decide to go on a road trip looking for God. And he pretty much says, "Hey, we're either going to help him or we're going to kick his ass," which is the attitude that Jesse Custer is. That's what has been screwing with me all season. He's not he's not this devout Christian guy that's trying to save everybody. He's like this badass rebel kind of guy, and I've been waiting all season to see him, and now I have to wait, and if I even stick around for season 2, see him then. But like you said, the Seraphim Angel is shown at the very end, wandering through the wreckage, still alive, and then she's finally fucking killed by the Saint of all killers, who just blasts a hole in her chest. And then he just goes preacher, so he's looking for him.
He's on the hunt for Jess.
And that's our finale. So definitely one of the weakest finales I've seen in a long time from a very
I would have rather watched Paint Dry.
Yeah, from a very weak season. So let's get into some of our thoughts about the overall season. Now that we've seen all 10 episodes. So to me, Cassidy was the only character that was good the whole series. Like he was exactly or pretty damn close to his character from the comics, and he was consistent. He was that character the whole time. So Cassidy,
I'll agree with that. He had a very likable character.
Yeah, Cassidy was probably the best character as far as the main trio.
He didn't change too much either, so that was kind of cool.
Yeah, and I liked all his little pop culture references. Like even at the end, he's still talking about how much he hates the Big Lebowski, and I like little stuff like that. And then Tulip shined whenever they gave her something to do, which was not very fucking often. Like maybe 4 scenes in 10 episodes she actually had something to do. Otherwise she was just standing around waiting and bitching that Jesse wasn't helping her.
Exactly. Or fucking Cassidy.
Yeah. And then Jesse, he had a few moments where he was kind of the badass from the comics. Like probably my favorite scene with him was whenever he was in the bathroom and Donnie was getting ready to kill him, and he's like, just put the gun away, I don't need to beat you like a bitch twice.
Yeah.
And stuff like that. But other than that, he was just forcing him to be this devout guy that only just is worried about saving this town.
It was too much.
It was so...
They were forcing it down our throats.
Well, they were forcing it down our throats. It was such a departure from the character. And not only that, but they made kind of a ballsy move. There's a couple times throughout the season where you don't even like Jesse. Like when he started getting this God complex where he thinks that everything that he does and says is the will of God, and everybody just has to deal with it. And like he starts being a dick.
Yeah.
And you don't even really like him after a certain point. I mean, he comes back and you start liking him again, but it was a very weird choice for your main character to make him unlikable. And I will say that one character that I think they improved upon from the comics was Arseface. They gave him a lot to do. Not really a lot to do. But... Well, they gave him a lot of the heartfelt stuff. He was kind of like your tugging on your heartstrings. He was kind of the one you identified with, because even though he did this horrible thing, he's like, he's always sweet and he's always devout. And he's always kind of he's always kind of the moral compass. Yeah. And so I thought he was an improvement on the comics. But other than that, just I've been saying it about every episode. I've been just patient this whole season. I can't even say I've enjoyed most of it. I enjoyed the pilot for the most part.
There was a few episodes that we cared for, but the rest of it, like you say, it was all filler. It was boring. It just dragged on and on and on, and you were just like, Jesus Christ, when are they going to get to something that means anything at all right now? Yeah, I mean, it was slow, boring, and dragged out is exactly how you can describe this first season. And to me, like, if they were that hell-bent on doing a prequel to the comics, I still don't understand why they felt that was the only way they could do this. They should have made the first season shorter. Yeah, there was so much they could have omitted.
They should have had like 6 episodes. Do like a little mini season, see how everybody likes it, get your story out there.
And then open it up.
And then they'll get renewed. They can do a full 12-episode season and everything. But just they had like I said, about 5 episodes worth of story stretched across 10 episodes.
It was really bad.
And it was, I think they made a huge mistake trying to squeeze the first season out of this, like the first issue of the comic. And there's like 60, 70 issues.
What's the expression? Trying to get blood from a turnip, and that's what they were doing.
I mean, it just made no sense. I mean, there's so much storyline they can pull from. I mean, I'm only 3 books in out of 6, and there's so much crap that has gone on. They could get 4 to 5 seasons out of just what I've read in the first 3 books. And this isn't a show that's going to last 10 seasons. It's going to, it might 4 or 5, especially depending on how many people stick around after this first season.
After this season, if, say 100 people watched it, I know more than 100 people did. Say 100 people watched it. I don't even think half are coming back for the next season. I really don't.
It's funny, because I've looked online and there's so many different opinions out there. There's people who are insane fans of the comic that think the show is like God's gift to fucking TV, and then there's people who are insane fans of the comics that think this is absolute bullshit.
Yeah.
There's people who don't know the comics at all that thinks it's amazing. There's people that don't know the comics that thinks it's boring and what the hell is all this weird shit. Like, there's so many varying opinions out there that I don't know. It's like I don't know what their target audience is, because the only people that I know that have read the comics have already gave up on this. I think I'm the only one who've read the comics that I know of that stuck out till season 10. Everybody else bailed in like 4.
Yeah.
So
I think that's mostly because we've already started doing reviews. How fucked up would it be to just leave everybody hanging?
Like I said, I just kind of held patiently. I was waiting for them to kind of kick it into high gear, and like I'm more than willing to sit through 3 or 4 episodes of not that great beginning, and then all of a sudden it starts ratcheting up.
Finale.
Yeah, it starts ratcheting up and it goes somewhere. And there are rare exceptions on shows sometimes where the first season isn't all that great, but then they find their footing in the second season. But I'm gonna have to see some trailers and see what kind of storyline they're going with in season 2, because they really gotta fucking get the ball rolling on this shit, not just drag.
You're gonna have to like fucking tie me to a chair and tape my eyes open to get me to watch the second season, because right now I don't care for it. I'm sorry. I love Seth Rogen. Don't get me wrong, but dude fucked up.
Yeah, I don't know what I don't know what they were thinking with this, because like I just don't know how much honest to God story they thought they were trying to put out there. Where they had to have known writing this that this shit was slow. I can't understand anybody trying to, or I can't see anybody trying to pitch this saying that like we have all this stuff that we can squeeze out of this first couple issues and we'll see how it goes.
And dear God, like even if you're writing it and you think it's slow, like, or if you don't think it's slow, you think it's God's freaking gift. When you see it play out, they have to be like, and this might not go so well.
And I don't even see this being that entertaining for binge watching, because like sometimes it's a different experience when you have to wait every single week, and it's sometimes. I have had seasons of some shows that I felt were slow and kind of dragged out that I've had to wait for.
Yeah.
But then I rewatch it in like a binge watch format, and it's better.
Great.
But I don't see this doing that either, because all the things like all the little nods that they put out there, like they showed Hairstar for a second. Nobody's gonna fucking remember that when they come back in season 2.
I don't even know who the fuck he is.
Exactly. They finally did tie it in at the end, but they kept showing the Saint of all killers the whole season, and nobody can understand what the fuck that was.
We still don't know who he is or how he plays into this.
Yeah, I have a hard time, because I know who he is. I have a hard time predicting what people that don't read the comics think when they see that. Like, who is this cowboy?
I just think of an old fucking Western, and like, why the hell is he? Who? I don't know he's a Saint of all killers. Even still now, they don't tell us who he is. They don't ever tell us, this is the Saint of all killers. It's nowhere in the fucking show. So you might know who he is, and you might have a connection to him, but I fucking don't. I felt like he shouldn't have been in this.
Yeah.
It's too much shit. It was all filler, and I'm sorry, but this first season was absolute garbage.
Yeah, you could probably listen back to our reviews, and we enjoy certain parts of it, but as a whole, whenever you look back on it now, when we realize where we kind of had to work to get to here, and this is all we got, it's very disappointing, because we look back and I almost had to even when I was writing the notes for these before we did them, I kind of had to grasp at straws to find things to talk a lot about, like what did Tulip do this episode? And there was some there were some episodes where she literally just sat around and it was just you're mentioning her for the fact of mentioning her. But
yeah, just don't forget she's still here.
Yeah. So for the most part, guy, we were really, really underwhelmed by the finale.
I give it 2 thumbs way down.
All right, so we'll see if we're going to be back for season 2. It's going to depend a lot on the trailer. It's going to depend a lot on, whenever they come out with all the press saying what the story is going to be and what they're going to go with, or, I'm curious if they're going to have any kind of a backlash where people get pissed off at the finale, kind of like the way The Walking Dead did, where people were bitching and then all the showrunners and Seth Rogen, everybody's going to come out and say, oh, well, we're going to do this in season 2, just stick with us, and we'll see what they say. But for the most part, guys, a pretty underwhelming, boring, long, drawn-out first season of Preacher.
If you haven't already started watching it and if you don't have time invested, don't do it. Don't waste your time. I'm sorry, it sucks. It was garbage.
Yeah, if anything, wait for it to come out on Netflix and give the first, 3 or 4 episodes a shot. If you're bored by then, I promise you it doesn't get any better.
No, not at all.
If you're not sold by then, just go ahead and find the comics and read those, because it's a lot better. But this has been another review by Cody and Holly on the Cody Leach podcast. That is the end of our first season of Preacher Reviews. Go ahead and like and subscribe below on SoundCloud and YouTube. Send us any comments or questions below using the comment bars, or you can send us through Twitter using the hashtag the Cody Leach podcast.